There's a moment no one prepares you for. It's not the betrayal, not the heartbreak, not the silence. It's what happens after you've healed, after you've pulled yourself out of the emotional wreckage, after you've stopped checking your phone, after you've built your peace like a fortress, brick by brick, breath by breath. That's when it happens. The final move, not loud, not obvious, but strategic. See, narcissists don't strike when you're broken. That's too easy. They wait until you're whole, when you're centered, when your light starts shining again, when you're no longer reactive, no longer in their control. That's when they make their final move, not to get you back. Not out of love, but to break what you've rebuilt. Because here's the truth, they don't miss you. They miss the power they had over you, and when they see you've reclaimed it, they can't stand it. They'll reach out casually. They'll test your silence. They'll say things like, "I was just thinking of you," or "Hope you're doing well." But it's not connection. It's a hook. A test to see if the buttons still work, to see if they can still rattle your peace. Because in their world, love was never the goal. Control was. And if you've ever dealt with someone like this, you already know. The damage wasn't in the shouting, it was in the manipulation, in the gaslighting, in the slow erosion of your confidence, your clarity, your sense of self. And now that you've escaped that web, now that you're breathing freely again, they want back in, not to rebuild, but to reset the cycle. But you're wiser now, and wisdom doesn't play the same game twice. Because emotional intelligence isn't about winning the argument. It's not about having the last word. It's not even about proving they were wrong. It's about recognizing the game and choosing not to play. That's the real victory, the one they'll never understand, because it can't be seen. It's not dramatic, it's not explosive, it's quiet. Steady, clear, you don't react. You don't explain, you don't respond to the bait, because now, you know, you're not the same version of yourself that used to fall for breadcrumbs. You've outgrown the cycle, and they feel it, even if they don't say it. That's why their final move comes when you've gone still. Because silence unnerves them, peace exposes their chaos, and they'll do anything to drag you back in. But this time, you don't take the bait. Because you've learned that the strongest move isn't shouting. It isn't fighting. It isn't trying to be understood. It's staying grounded. It's letting your silence speak for the version of you that no longer lives in emotional survival mode. You no longer seek closure from someone who benefits from keeping you confused. You no longer try to fix someone who broke you while calling it love. You simply outgrow them. And that growth? That's what they can't reach. That's what drives them mad. Because once you're untouchable, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, they lose all access to you. You're no longer a source of supply. You're no longer an emotional puppet. You're no longer waiting for validation from someone who never gave it in good faith. And you know what? You don't even need revenge. Your elevation is the closure. Your peace is the statement. Your silence is the power move. So if you feel that final test coming, stay steady. Don't justify. Don't argue. Don't slip. Just observe. And then return to your calm. Return to your life. Return to your freedom. Because in the end, the final move isn't loud. It's strategic. It's disciplined. It's stoic. And it belongs to the person who no longer needs to prove their strength, because they embody it. Part 1. Why narcissists panic when you stop reacting. Let's get one thing straight. Control is the oxygen of a narcissist. And the moment you stop reacting, they can't breathe. Because your attention? That was never just a bonus. It was the fuel, the lifeline, the proof they existed in your world. Every emotional outburst, every argument they provoked, every game they played, it all had one goal: to get a reaction. Because as long as they could get you to feel something, anger, guilt, confusion, shame, they still had a hold on you. That's how the cycle survives. And then one day, you stop. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending your truth. You stop participating in the dance. You go still, and suddenly, they panic, because silence is not just quiet, it's exposure. It shines a light on what they can't control. And in their world, losing control feels like dying. Let me give you an example. Lisa had been in an emotionally toxic relationship for years. Constant blame, gaslighting. Walking on eggshells every day. Then one day, after months of healing in silence, she left. No grand confrontation. No dramatic exit, just calm, steady departure, with no more reactions, no more tears, no more begging to be seen. And what happened next? He launched a smear campaign, told mutual friends she was unstable, spun the story so he looked like the victim. Why? Because he needed to regain the narrative. He needed to provoke a reaction, to pull her back into the chaos. But Lisa didn't respond. And that silence? It wasn't passive. It was power. Because when a narcissist can no longer get to you, they no longer feel relevant to you. And that is their greatest fear. They don't want you back. They want you under. They want your peace broken. Your mind clouded. Your identity shaken. Because your calm presence. It's like a mirror they can't distort. It reflects the truth of who they really are, and they can't stand it. Now let's bring in some Stoic wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and one of the most powerful men in history, wrote, "You must expect intrusions, but remain undisturbed." In other words, you can't control how others act. You can control how you respond. That's Stoic resilience. That's how you reclaim your peace. Not by fighting fire with fire, but by refusing to carry their flame. See, emotional calmness isn't weakness. It's not surrender. It's not avoiding conflict. It's psychological warfare through stillness. When you stop reacting, you break the circuit. You stop feeding the dysfunction. You deny them the chaos they thrive on. And here's what's really powerful. The narcissist will interpret your silence as loss of control, because it is. Not your loss, theirs. They'll say you've changed. They'll accuse you of being cold, distant, heartless. But deep down, they know you're no longer theirs to control. And when you reach that place, you don't just stop reacting to them. You stop reacting to anyone who tries to disturb your peace. That's the Stoic transformation. You shift from being emotionally pulled in every direction to being centered in yourself. And from that center, you can observe their panic, not with fear, but with compassion and detachment. You don't hate them. You simply no longer feed them. You understand the game, but you've outgrown the board. And now? Now you lead with quiet strength. You don't try to convince. You don't try to be understood. You live and let your life be the answer. So if you're in that place now, wondering if you should respond, wondering if you should defend yourself, wondering if your silence is enough, remember this: your silence isn't silence. It's clarity, it's healing, it's evolution. You're not who you used to be, and that's exactly why they're panicking. Because the version of you that used to beg, cry, argue, or explain no longer exists. And the new version, the calm, grounded, self-led version, they don't know how to control that. Part 2. The smear campaign begins. There's a moment in every healing journey that catches you off guard. You finally walked away. You've found your peace. You're no longer reacting, no longer chasing, no longer explaining. And just when you think the storm is over, it starts. But this time, it's not loud. It's subtle, it's strategic, it's the smear campaign. Because when a narcissist realizes they can't shake your peace, they'll go after something else. Your reputation. And they won't come at you directly. That would require accountability. No, what they do instead is start planting seeds. Tiny, poisonous seeds of doubt. They twist truths. They exaggerate flaws. They drop vague concerns in conversation like, I don't want to say too much, but I'm worried about them. I tried everything, but they just changed. They're not who they seem to be. And people around you, they start wondering. They start doubting. They start looking at you differently, not because you've done something wrong, but because someone else is working overtime to make sure they aren't held accountable for what they did. Let me give you an example. Mark finally left his toxic marriage. He didn't slam the door. He didn't trash his ex. He left quietly, with dignity. But soon after, he started getting strange messages from mutual friends. Comments like, "Hey, I heard you were struggling mentally," or "She said you just shut down." She never confronted him directly. She didn't need to. She simply played the victim, quietly, consistently, emotionally. And because Mark refused to fight back, her version of the story began to spread. That's how narcissists weaponize perception. They don't need evidence. They just need access to people who will listen without question. And it works. Because while you're focused on healing, they're focused on managing the narrative. So what do? How do you defend yourself when your silence is being used against you? You don't. Because here's the Stoic truth. Don't defend. Let time reveal the truth. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Time is a sort of river of passing events, and strong is the current that washes away lies." You see, narcissists want you to break your silence. They want you to panic. They want you to chase down rumors and clear things up. Because the moment you do, you're back in their game. Back in emotional chaos. Back trying to explain yourself to people who were never committed to understanding you in the first place. And that's the trap. So the Stoic path is this. 1. Don't defend. Let your silence speak. When someone lies about you, they expect resistance. Give them stillness instead. Because silence doesn't mean weakness. It means, I don't explain myself to the wrong audience. It means, I'm not giving oxygen to a fire I didn't start. 2. Let time reveal the truth. Lies move fast. But truth has endurance. False narratives might win a few early rounds, but in the long run, your consistency will outlive their chaos. You don't need to fight for your reputation. You need to live in a way that makes the lies unbelievable. And that brings us to the third part. 3. Be consistently excellent. Let your integrity speak louder than their gossip. Let your growth make their smear campaign irrelevant. Live so well, so clearly, so authentically, that even those who hear the lies start questioning them. Let your life say, I'm not perfect, but I am grounded, honest, and whole. Because here's what they can't take from you. Your peace. Your values. Your way of showing up, day in, day out, with calm strength. And eventually, the people who matter. They'll see it, they'll feel it, and the lies. They'll fade like smoke. So if you're being smeared right now, breathe. You are not what they say about you. You are what you continually choose to be in the face of it all. Don't chase rumors. Don't respond to whispers. Don't play chess with someone who cheats every time they lose. Just stay grounded. Stay still. Stay silent. Not because you're afraid to speak, but because your peace is the only statement that matters. Part 3. Triangulation. Emotional manipulation via third parties. There's a kind of manipulation that's subtle, but vicious. It doesn't come in the form of direct attacks. It comes through others, carefully selected third parties. It's called triangulation. And if you've dealt with a narcissist, you've probably experienced it without even knowing the name. Here's how it works. After you pull away, after you stop reacting, after you reclaim your peace, they don't come straight at you. No, that would be too obvious. Instead, they create a triangle. They pull in other people, mutual friends, exes, even your kids, anyone who can serve as a messenger of their power. And then the games begin. They post vague quotes about betrayal or fake people online, timed perfectly for you to see. They flaunt a new partner across social media, just enough to sting, not enough to admit they're trying to provoke you. They mention you in conversations with others, knowing it'll get back to you. They ask mutual friends things like, "How's she doing? I hope he's okay. We had something real once, you know?" It sounds harmless, but make no mistake, it's calculated. Because triangulation isn't about moving on, it's about pulling you back in. It's about destabilizing your healing, reigniting insecurity, reopening wounds. Let me give you an example. Ava had finally moved on from her emotionally manipulative ex. She blocked him. She rebuilt her routine. She even started sleeping better. Then suddenly, he was everywhere, posting photos with a new partner at places they used to go, asking their mutual friends about her, but only indirectly, sending her a "hope you're well" message on her birthday, even though he never remembered it during the relationship. And the worst part, friends started saying, "He seems happier now. Maybe he's changed. Are you sure you're totally over it?" It wasn't random. It was triangulation, designed to make Ava question herself, to wonder if she left too soon, to second-guess her own peace, to pull her back into the mental maze she fought so hard to escape. So, what do you do when triangulation begins? How do you protect your mind when the attack doesn't come head-on? That's where Stoic strength comes in. Here are 4 Stoic protection tactics to guard your peace when triangulation appears. 1. Refuse the bait. Everything they do is designed to provoke. That's the game. So when they post that photo, when they name drop in group chats, when they let their new partner accidentally like your old content, don't take the bait. You don't have to respond. You don't have to match their energy. You don't even have to acknowledge the move. The moment you react, they win. The moment you stay still, you rise. 2. Guard your mind. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Don't let external games infiltrate your internal calm. Your mind is your kingdom. Don't give away the keys just because someone knocked. Protect your thoughts. Filter what you hear. Don't believe everything that gets back to you. It's usually distorted by design. 3. Detach emotionally. Prioritize peace. Yes, it might sting to see them move on so fast. Yes, it might feel unfair when others fall for the image they're presenting. But remember, their goal isn't peace, it's performance. So don't join the act. You're not on that stage anymore. You've left the theater. Stay detached, not from life, but from manipulation. Your peace isn't up for auction. Protect it like treasure. 4. Never compete. You already won. Triangulation is built on comparison. They want you to feel replaced. They want you to compete. They want you to chase. But here's the Stoic truth. The person who walks away with dignity has already won. You didn't win because you moved on faster. You won because you refused to play a losing game. You chose clarity over confusion, silence over shouting, self-respect over reactivity. And that choice, that's real power. So the next time they post, the next time the message comes through a third party, the next time the bait is dropped, pause, breathe, and remember who you are now. You're not the same person they once controlled. You're not living to be seen, chosen, or pitied. You're living to be free. And when someone tries to triangulate you, they're revealing something important. They still need you for emotional supply. But you don't need them. Not for peace, not for worth, not for anything. That's what true detachment looks like. Part 4. The I've changed manipulation. There's a moment in healing no one warns you about. You've done the work. You've cried it out. You've broken the trauma bond. You've finally found your footing. And then, ding, a message arrives. I've been thinking about everything. I've changed. You didn't deserve the version of me I was. And just like that, your heart skips. Because maybe, just maybe, it's real this time. They're saying all the right things. They mention therapy. They take accountability. They seem soft, calm, vulnerable, but deep down, your gut whispers, be careful. Because here's what most people don't tell you. The most dangerous mask a manipulator can wear is self-awareness. And narcissists? They know how to weaponize growth language without actually growing. Because when they realize anger and control no longer work on you, they switch tactics. They come back clean. They come back calm. They come back as the version you always hoped they could be. But here's the thing. Real change is slow. Real change is unspoken. Real change doesn't demand a second chance. It earns it, without asking. Let me give you a story. Sophia had finally cut ties with Julian after years of emotional turmoil. Gaslighting, guilt-tripping, hot and cold behavior, she was exhausted. 6 months after going no contact, Julian reached out. He said he'd been in therapy. He said he finally understood how deeply he hurt her. He said all he wanted was a chance to show who he really was underneath the pain. Sophia hesitated, but his words felt sincere. So she opened the door, just slightly. At first it was good. He was patient, gentle, communicative. But 2 weeks in, old patterns resurfaced. Subtle guilt, passive aggression, control disguised as concern. And just like that, she was back in the web she thought she had escaped. That's the I've changed trap. It doesn't always come with red flags. Sometimes it comes with roses. So how do you tell the difference? How do you know if they've really grown, or if it's just another manipulation tactic? Here's where Stoic discernment becomes your greatest shield. Seneca, the great Roman philosopher, said, "Time discovers truth. Not apologies, not poetic text messages, not, 'I'm working on myself.' Time." Because real change, it's not loud, it's not instant. It doesn't come knocking with promises. It shows up through actions, quietly and consistently. So here's how you spot the difference between true growth and emotional manipulation. 1. Real change doesn't expect a reward. If they're coming back with expectation, they haven't changed. If they say things like, "I did all this work, don't I deserve another chance?" they're still making it about them. True growth is humble. It doesn't pressure. It doesn't negotiate forgiveness like a transaction. 2. Real change is consistent, not performative. One kind message means nothing. 3 calm days don't undo 3 years of chaos. Watch for patterns, not promises. Consistency over time is the only proof that transformation is real. 3. Real change doesn't just say sorry, it doesn't repeat. Apologies are easy. Changing the behavior that required the apology in the first place. That's the real work. And if they're doing the work, you won't need to ask. You'll see it. But here's the Stoic truth. You don't owe access just because someone claims improvement. You can forgive someone and still keep them at a distance. You can wish someone well and still choose peace over proximity. You can love what you hoped they'd become and still walk away from who they continue to be. Because your healing isn't just about the absence of pain, it's about learning to trust yourself again, to trust your intuition, to trust your boundaries, to trust your strength when the past comes back dressed as progress. So the next time they say, "I've changed," don't just listen with your heart. Watch with your eyes, and when in doubt, don't move fast. Let time do what it does best. Reveal what's real. Part 5. Guilt baiting. When they weaponize your empathy. There's a tactic that cuts deep because it doesn't attack your flaws. It targets your heart. It sounds like this: "I'm not okay without you. You were the only person who really cared. I just wanted to say goodbye, because none of this makes sense anymore." And suddenly, your chest tightens. Not because you believe them, but because your empathy gets pulled like a string. Welcome to guilt baiting. It's one of the oldest emotional manipulation tools there is. And narcissists? They are masters at using it to break your boundaries, especially when silence is your protection. Because when they realize they can't provoke you with anger, they'll try to pull you back through guilt. Not rage, not blame, just quiet pain, calculated, scripted, and aimed directly at your compassion. Let's look at how this plays out. David and Claire had been no contact for 2 months after Claire walked away from years of emotional manipulation. Then one night, completely out of the blue, David sends her a message. "I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just wanted to say thank you for loving me when no one else did. I'm not sure I'll make it through the week, but I understand you don't care anymore." It wasn't a cry for help. It was a hook. Because the moment Claire read that message, her instinct wasn't logic. It was empathy. She felt sick, panicked, responsible. Even after everything he put her through, she questioned herself. That's the power of guilt baiting. It flips the narrative. You go from being the survivor to feeling like the villain. But here's the truth you need to remember. Compassion doesn't require self-abandonment. And your kindness should never be used against you. So how do you protect yourself from guilt-based manipulation? How do you honor your heart without betraying your healing? That's where Stoic boundaries become your anchor. Let's walk through 4 principles that will help you respond with wisdom, not guilt. 1. Know the difference between kindness and self-betrayal. Being a good person doesn't mean being emotionally available to everyone. Especially not to people who've consistently disrespected your peace. Stoicism teaches us this: do not give what is sacred to those who trample it. Your empathy is sacred, and you are not cruel for protecting it. 2. Pause before responding. Check for guilt-based reflexes. When a guilt-bait message lands, your first reaction will almost always be emotional. So stop, breathe, Ask yourself, am I responding out of genuine care or out of guilt? Is this message coming from love or control wrapped in sadness? If it's guilt that's pushing you to respond, don't. Guilt is not guidance. It's a sign you're being manipulated. 3. Remember, real healing is respectful, not dramatic. People who are truly healing don't guilt trip you into engagement. They don't send cryptic messages. They don't threaten peace to get attention. Healing is quiet. It respects boundaries. It doesn't demand that others bleed just because you're hurting. So if someone claims to be healing but they're making you feel responsible for their pain, that's not healing. That's control through empathy. 4. Ask the golden question. Would they do the same for me? It's a powerful filter, because if you flipped the roles, if you were the one hurting, broken, or in need, would they offer the same level of care they're demanding now? Would they hold space for your pain? Would they listen without using it later? Would they protect you the way they expect to be protected? If the answer is no, then what they're asking for isn't love. It's a return to the imbalance they benefited from. Let's be clear. Feeling empathy doesn't make you weak. Caring deeply doesn't make you a target. But learning to guard your empathy, that's emotional maturity. It's saying, I wish you healing, but not at the cost of my own. I hope you find peace, but I'm not the path back to it. I care, but I don't abandon myself to prove it. Because in the end, you're not responsible for the pain someone caused and refuses to repair. You didn't walk away to punish them. You walked away to protect you. And anyone who makes your boundary feel like betrayal never really honored your heart in the first place. Part 6. The illusion of replacement. Have you ever looked at someone who once betrayed you, only to see them laughing, smiling, and appearing completely happy with someone new? You pause. You feel a jolt, and the mind begins to whisper, was I the problem all along? Did they just need the right person to finally treat someone well? Maybe I really was the one who wasn't enough. But here's the truth, and I need you to hear this clearly. It's not real. At least not in the way it appears. Narcissists don't replace you. They recycle you. They don't upgrade. They repackage the same dysfunction and hand it to someone else. Because for them, relationships aren't about growth, depth, or healing. They're about supply, validation, control. Image. Let's break this down. Sophia had finally walked away from a toxic relationship, emotionally drained but proud of the boundaries she fought hard to build. Then, barely 2 weeks later, she saw it. Her ex was in a new relationship. Happy photos. Quotes about finally being understood. Even a trip to the same vacation spot they once visited together. It hurt. And it wasn't because she wanted him back. It was because, for a moment, it looked like he'd changed for someone else. Weeks passed. Then one day, she got a message from the new girlfriend. And the message was filled with confusion, self-doubt, and eerily familiar stories of gaslighting, guilt-tripping, and emotional withdrawal. That's when Sophia realized she hadn't been replaced. She had been replicated. Same cycle, different target. Here's what you need to know. What narcissists present online is not a window. It's a mirror, a projection, a carefully crafted image designed to trigger you and fool others. They don't move on out of love. They move on out of fear. Fear of being alone, irrelevant, or exposed. So they perform. They parade their happiness. They show off new partners like trophies. But what they're really saying is, look how fine I am without you. Look how desirable I still am. Look how quickly I can replace you. But healing? True, quiet, internal healing. That doesn't need an audience. Now, let's bring in the Stoic lens. The Stoics taught us to see beyond appearances. To ask, not, how does it look, but what is it really? As Marcus Aurelius put it, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What you're seeing when someone rushes into a new relationship after hurting you isn't strength. It's avoidance. Avoiding responsibility, avoiding reflection, avoiding themselves. And the person they're with, they're not receiving a better version of the person who hurt you. They're receiving the same exact person, just with a fresh script and a new stage. So here's your challenge, your invitation, your path forward. Stop watching the show. Let them post. Let them perform. Let them pretend. You are no longer the audience. Their life is not your theater. Their chaos is not your responsibility. Their new happiness is not your loss. Because you didn't lose someone who loved you, you released someone who used you. And no matter what they try to display, they can't erase that truth. Now, let's shift the focus to you. Instead of asking, why did they move on so fast? Ask this: why did I ever accept less than peace? What inside of me believed that chaos was love? What part of me is now waking up stronger, wiser, and clearer? Because that is the only story worth investing in. Your healing, your wholeness, your freedom. And that new version of you? The one who no longer checks their feed. The one who no longer compares or questions their worth. That version is dangerous because they are no longer easily manipulated. They are not easily provoked. They are not easily guilted. They are not easily replaced because their peace cannot be purchased. So, let them have their illusion. Let them run their cycle. Eventually their mask slips. Eventually their patterns repeat. Eventually, the truth catches up. But you don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be seen by the person who once refused to look. Because in your silence, you've already said enough. And in your stillness, you've already reclaimed your power. Part 7. The Narcissist's Inner Collapse. You want to know what truly unsettles a narcissist? Not confrontation, not revenge, not even being exposed. No. What unravels them, quietly, completely, and from the inside out, is your silence. Because for the narcissist, attention is oxygen. And your peace is the oxygen mask being slowly, silently removed. Let me paint a picture for you. Ethan, a textbook narcissist, used to thrive on the chaos he created. He'd bait his ex with texts, vague social media posts, even accidental run-ins. And every time she responded, angrily, emotionally confused, he'd smirk. Because that reaction, that was proof he still mattered. But one day, she stopped replying. No texts. No comments, no tears, nothing. And suddenly, Ethan had no script, no lines to deliver, no stage to perform on, no control left to claim, so he pretended. He posted about healing, flaunted a new relationship, quoted philosophers he'd never read. But behind the smile was a storm, because without your reaction, the narcissist begins to lose not just control, but their very sense of identity. See, here's what many people don't realize. For the narcissist, your pain wasn't a byproduct, it was the product. You feeling unsteady made them feel powerful. You chasing validation made them feel important. You breaking down made them feel whole. But when you go silent, when you refuse to defend, react, or engage, you rob them of their supply, And it's not just inconvenient, it's devastating. Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." That's not just poetic. It's psychological warfare through self-control, because the narcissist expects you to collapse, to scream, to beg, to explain, but when you don't, they're left staring into a mirror that reflects all the things they tried to project onto you. The insecurity, the emptiness, the fear of being forgotten. Here's the secret. Your silence isn't passive. It's a statement. It says, "I no longer owe you access to my mind. I'm no longer interested in playing your game. My energy is too sacred for your chaos." It's not about pretending to be okay. It's about choosing peace over provocation. And every time you don't respond, every time you don't explain, every time you walk away instead of looking back, you reclaim something they could never give you. Self-leadership. Let them resent. Let them perform. Because behind the curtain of curated Instagram posts and new partners, the narcissist isn't thriving. They're unraveling. Why? Because the one thing they can't control is your healing. They can't stop your growth. They can't rewrite your silence, and to them that's terrifying. So if you're wondering, should I say something? Should I clear the air? Should I tell them how much they hurt me? Here's your answer. You already have. With your absence, with your stillness, with the life you're building that has nothing to do with proving anything to them. Because healing is not a show. It's not something you broadcast. It's something you embody, quietly, daily, unshakably. And while they spiral trying to rewrite history, you write a new chapter entirely. One where peace is not negotiated. One where your worth is not questioned. One where you finally see that the storm they brought into your life was never your reflection. It was theirs. If this message spoke to a part of you that needed clarity and closure, do me a favor. Click that like button and let the algorithm know this kind of healing matters. Subscribe for more Stoic-inspired insights and comment below. My silence is my power. Let's keep reclaiming our peace, one boundary at a time. Part 8. Why narcissists target strong people. Here's a truth most people don't realize. Narcissists don't prey on the weak. They target the strong. They're not drawn to people who have nothing to offer. They're drawn to those who carry light, resilience, empathy, and heart. Because deep down, they crave what they don't have, but can't create on their own. So if you've ever been manipulated by someone toxic, it's not because you were naive. It's because your strength was unguarded. Let me introduce you to Maya. She was brilliant. Independent, the kind of woman who led teams at work, volunteered on weekends, and still made time for her friends and family. But behind closed doors, she was slowly, systematically broken down. Not through screaming matches or physical violence, but through subtle manipulation. The gaslighting, the guilt trips, the "you're too sensitive" comments that made her question her own reality. And yet, she stayed, for years. Not because she was weak, but because she was loyal. Because she believed in growth. Because she thought, if I just love them a little harder, they'll finally become the version they promised to be. Sound familiar? Here's what we need to understand. Narcissists are master readers of human value. They seek out the emotionally intelligent, the ones who reflect, the ones who forgive, the ones who show up again and again, even when they shouldn't have to. But it's not your empathy that was the problem. It's that your empathy didn't have boundaries. And that is the shift we begin making today. So how do you reclaim your power? Let's break this down. First, forgive yourself for staying. This isn't about shame. It's about self-compassion. You stayed because you hoped, because you cared, because you were strong. But now, you're learning a different kind of strength, the kind that walks away. Second, stop over-explaining. You don't need to justify your boundaries to people who were never interested in respecting them. Silence isn't avoidance, it's elevation. Third, train your emotional responses. Every time you pause instead of react, every time you breathe instead of break, every time you choose calm over chaos, you're building what the Stoics called inner fortitude. It's not about becoming cold, it's about becoming conscious. Fourth, channel your pain into purpose. Use your experience not as a scar, but as a compass. Write. Speak. Help others. Build something that outlasts the damage. Because transformation isn't about forgetting, it's about translating your pain into strength. And finally, develop spiritual discipline. Journal. Sit in silence. Practice clarity. Not because it's trendy, but because it's powerful. As Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that freedom, it's forged not in loud victories, but in quiet decisions. In the way you choose your peace. In the way you say no without guilt. In the way you rise without announcing it. So if a narcissist ever tried to convince you that you were too much, too emotional, too difficult to love, let me remind you of this. They saw your power before you did. They tried to control what they couldn't become. But that season is over. Now, you choose. Now, you lead. And the next time someone tries to test your worth, you'll remember you were never broken. You were just unprotected. And that ends now. Part 9. The Silent Hoover. Their last trick. Sometimes, the most dangerous move isn't loud. It doesn't come with a slam of a door, a screaming match, or an accusatory message. It comes quietly. A short text that reads, "I just wanted to say goodbye," or a random like on your old photo, or a mutual friend telling you, "They were asking how you've been. Make no mistake, this is not closure. This is not kindness. This is the final trick. It's called the Silent Hoover. And it's not about you. It's about re-entry. You see, narcissists don't always leave through the front door. When their tactics stop working, when you've gone silent, healed, built peace, they resort to the softest, most manipulative play of all, vulnerability. Suddenly, the person who was once cold, controlling and callous, becomes fragile. They whisper, "I miss you. You were the only one who truly saw me. I hope you're okay." And in that moment, they're not trying to apologize. They're trying to hijack your empathy. Why? Because silence terrifies them. It means they've lost control, and now they're looking for a crack in your peace, a little opening just enough to slip back in. Here's where Stoic wisdom becomes your armor. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So how do you protect that power when they return with softness? You fortify your peace like a fortress. Here's how. 1. Create a new identity they don't recognize. You're no longer the version of you they once manipulated. Your calmness, your confidence, your detachment, it's foreign to them now, and that's good. 2. Protect access to you. Ruthlessly. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Don't respond out of nostalgia. Don't check their socials. Block, delete. Move forward, not because of hate, but because of health. 3. Be clear, not polite. If you must interact, do it with clarity, not softness. Politeness in the face of manipulation is not virtue. It's vulnerability. You can be respectful without being available. 4. Expect the strategic return. They'll reappear around birthdays, after a big success in your life, or during the holidays, when nostalgia is at its peak. Not because they care, but because they hope you still do. 5. Build a low-drama, high-discipline life. This is your ultimate protection. When you create a routine filled with structure, clarity, and purpose, chaos has no place to land. Let me say something important here. Just because someone is hurting doesn't mean you owe them your healing. You've worked too hard to get here. You've trained your emotions. You've created stillness. You've learned to respond with purpose, not impulse. Don't trade your peace for a memory. Don't invite back the pain just because it knocks gently. You are no longer that version of yourself. And if you need a reminder, the strongest version of you isn't the one who fought for love. It's the one who walked away to protect it. Let's set one thing straight. You were never weak. You were targeted not because you lacked strength, but because you had it in abundance, because your light was bright, because your heart was open, because your loyalty ran deep and your soul was generous. And to someone who thrives on control, that kind of strength feels like a challenge. So they tried to dim it. Twist it, own it, but here you are. Not broken, not bitter, but rebuilt. You see, narcissists don't survive in strong, disciplined environments. They can't manipulate someone who's anchored. They can't provoke someone who's learned to pause. They can't haunt someone who's made peace with silence. That's why your stillness is so powerful. Because it's not emptiness. It's control. Because it doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally understand what's worth caring about. When you detach, not out of spite but out of self-respect, you transform from target to fortress. You don't just survive them. You become someone they can no longer access, no longer influence, no longer recognize. Let them keep chasing shadows of who you were. You've outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated manipulation. You've replaced reactivity with reflection. You no longer beg for clarity. You embody it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." And you've done just that. You didn't strike back. You didn't stoop low. You didn't try to expose them to the world. You simply evolved. And in doing so, you delivered the most powerful response of all. You became untouchable. So if you're watching this, and you've ever questioned your worth because of the way someone treated you, let this be your reminder. You were never the problem. You were simply the one they couldn't control. Your silence was your boundary. Your detachment was your wisdom. Your growth is your victory. And they will never reach this version of you again. Not because you're hiding, but because you've risen. There comes a moment in your healing journey when you realize you don't need to respond. You don't need to defend. You don't even need to explain, because you've already won. Not by yelling louder, not by proving your point, but simply by outgrowing the chaos that once consumed you. You see, emotional mastery isn't about bottling things up. It's not about pretending that nothing hurt. It's about reaching a level of self-control so grounded, so rooted, that nothing can shake you anymore. That silence you've chosen. It's not emptiness. It's not defeat. It's power. It says, "I no longer live at the mercy of your chaos. I no longer bleed just to prove I care. I'm done sacrificing my peace to explain my worth." Let them wonder. Let them replay the story. Let them twist the narrative. You don't need to chase truth anymore. You live it. Your evolution will do what no argument ever could. So let them gossip. Let them stage their drama. Let them pretend they've moved on. Because here's the truth. They're watching. They're waiting. They're hoping for a flicker of the old you, the one who used to break, beg, or bite back, but you're no longer there. You've risen too high to come back down. You've replaced reactivity with restraint, and in doing so, you've built something unshakable, self-respect. In the words of the Stoic masters, you win not by responding, but by outgrowing. Because to truly evolve is to become someone they can no longer trigger, someone they can no longer access, someone they can't even understand anymore. So keep rising, keep moving forward in quiet strength. No revenge, no retaliation, just relentless, graceful evolution. And when they look back confused by your calm, let them wonder. Because your growth is the one thing they can never touch again. Comment below with, "I've outgrown the noise," if this resonated with you. If this video helped reframe your strength through a Stoic lens, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a quiet revolution. You're not here to be reactive. You're here to lead by rising above